8 o'clock. Y'all know what that means, right? It's time to talk. Welcome. It's season 7. Can y'all imagine that? We've been on this journey now 7 seasons. And I swear it keeps getting better and better. First and foremost, y'all saw the commercial. If you don't know about IMP, definitely reach out to your rep and find out how they can help you with your efficiencies and your positioning devices in your OR. It will save you time in your departments and save tremendous time in the OR so you're not worrying about those hiccups. This season, I'm excited to say that this season we are definitely excited about. We're offering CEUs. Imagine, like, where we, for those that have been here for the whole journey, to see us get to where we at right now. Again, for you being here, I appreciate you. Thank you all. And this is how we give back. These episodes, this whole season, will have a CEU attached. How does that work? At the end of the show, after the last commercial runs, there will be a QR code up on the screen. You scan that QR code and you get taken to the exam for this episode. Once you take that test for this episode, once you pass it, it will automatically give you your CEU. It can be downloaded and it'll be shot to your email once you go there to put in your information. So yes, we are definitely excited about that. Game changer for certain. And we are more and more excited about the possibilities of what we're going to do this season and what we're taking to you this season. So where does that leave us? First and foremost, for this episode, what I wanted to do, I wanted to take a chance. I wanted to talk about things we don't talk about for sterile processing. We all know what we do. If you've been in this business any amount of time, we all know what we do. Or do we? For the new people coming in, for people on the outside looking in, and I think what made me think of this episode is that I was in a facility and I overheard somebody say that dishwasher comment. You know how we feel about that. And I thought about it. I was like, if that's all people think that happens in sterile processing, maybe somebody needs to clarify that. Maybe we need to talk about it so that that recognition that we keep talking about, that recognition that we keep looking for, maybe they don't know what exactly happens, which is why we get classified in those particular categories. Maybe it's time for us to enlighten them as to the complexities that do go into sterile processing. So that's what this episode is. This episode is Behind the Rack. And it's going to talk about our workflows, what we actually do. And we're going to talk about those common misconceptions that people have about sterile processing and what those technicians and leaders do. So I wanted to reach out to somebody who I know that I've been, familiar with. I've been down to their chapter. I've talked to their staff and, enlighten them and talk to them and educate it. And I wanted to bring her on specifically because I wanted to make sure that we're hearing voices this season that actually have something to say. And I don't take that lightly. All my past guests, much respect to everything that they've done and will continue to do in this business. But I wanted to make sure that we're talking to people that you normally probably wouldn't talk to on LinkedIn, or you see them at a conference and you're like, who is that? Well, I'm going to bring a lot of those people to you this season. And the first one of my guests that is here to talk to us about Behind the Rack is Miss Donielle Horn. So please welcome her to the platform and let's give her a warm round of applause when she comes in. Woo! I got you. Miss Horn, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, the applause is there. You see that? All the applause from everybody. Welcome and thank you for, helping me talk about this topic that I think it definitely needs to be addressed. I think it's something that people skim over because a lot of us get offended by that comment. But it's like, if we don't educate the people to what we truly do, that's all they're going to see us as, a glorified dishwasher, right? So we want to get rid of that stigma. We want to get rid of that misconception, and let's talk about it. Tundra. I see you there, Miss Hall. Thank you. Yes, CEUs. We're here with it. We're here with it. Ms. Horn, for the people that don't know who you are, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Donielle. I have been in this industry for 21 years now. So, I appreciate you bringing not only me on this show, but just what you do for the industry. So thank you again for that. I have spent some time on different chapters throughout my career. And yes, also, I'm offended by that comment.
and that's what this conversation stems from, is like, so, and this is, and I'm not here to insult anybody's intelligence, but what I'm going to ask her to do is something that we all should know the answer to. Donielle, what is sterile processing?
I don't think when you look at sterile processing, when you look at sterile processing, it's like cleaning, disinfecting, and providing patient care, right?
Right.
But if you just look at the basics of that, but we do so much more than that. And
I think that's where I wanted to take this, is like, you hit the nail on the head from that first part, because if you ask anybody, that's exactly what they're going to say. Don't y'all do the instruments? So they leave it right there, not knowing that there's a plethora of other things that actually take place in sterile processing. So one of the common misconceptions is that all we do is instruments and we have no direct relation to patient care. Can you speak to what that means to you when you say all you do is instruments and you don't affect patient care?
Yeah. That's what I tell people when I am interviewing them. That's what I love so much about our job, is the impact we do have to patient care. So there's so many opportunities that we could get it wrong, that we have to get it right. And one of those missed opportunities could impact that patient, right? So, anytime I'm doing interviews or talking to a potential new candidate, that's the one thing I highlight in those interviews to them, is that impact to patient care that we could have.
Like in that one statement there, if you're just doing instruments, how does that impact patient care?
If we're doing instruments and we don't get it right, that definitely would have a significant impact on that.
So when we talk of getting it right, and we're talking about the way that we get it right.
Yeah.
For the layman outside looking in, is there a specific process that takes place to get it right?
Yeah,
what does that look like? What does that look like?
Yeah, so like cleaning of the instruments, making sure the point of use care is right, educating the people around you, from the technicians, sometimes even to the OR teams, making sure you have the right equipment, sterilization, getting all of that.
So let's break it down for him. Hey, Carol, I saw you. Carol, hi from Ohio. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. So if I'm following the flow here, so you have instruments that are dirty. Let's just say contaminated, as they say, right? Mm-hmm. If we have instruments that are contaminated, what does that initial process look like? We're going to walk them through the workflow real quick. We're going to walk them through to get them.
Okay.
We're going to get them up to speed real quick for people who don't know. So you get contaminated instruments, you receive it in an area called decontamination. What happens in that area?
So the cleaning of them. So once you're in decontam and you're cleaning them, you have to break it down. If you're training someone in decontam, then even knowing how to clean the instruments, does it go through the washer? Is it hand washed? The IFU of the instrumentation. That's a lot to learn in itself.
So it's not just like washing dishes. There are actually specific things that you have to learn.
Absolutely. Yeah. So training the new technician, tying that in. Not everything is the same. Does it go through the sonic? All of those.
I was about to ask that. So
how much time does it take to go through the sonic? And knowing these times, there's a lot to remember for each of the technicians. So
is everything back there handled the same? Like, is every instrument created equal? I guess I should ask that.
No, not every instrument is created equal.
And when it comes to the cleaning and aspects, how do you know what to do in those situations?
So we always have to defer to the IFU.
Okay.
So I would say knowing the manufacturer's recommendations, and then also having solid training plans in place. So, and tying those types of things, if you have good tracking systems, you can tie those things into your tracking systems. But those would be my recommendations. But
so we received it. We got it cleaning through the cleaning process. We're following the IFU from the sinks and decon. Where does it go next?
The sinks, and then if it needs to go through the sonic, then you would place them in the sonic. If it doesn't require sonication, then you would put them through the washer disinfectors, or you would put it through, if it's a hand wash item, then you put it through the hand wash.
Why is the sonic piece important to know that it does or doesn't?
The sonic's important because that's just a extra component to help break up the bioburden. So if that's what's required, a lot of like your orthopedics or cannulated items require that. So.
Okay. So there's many different machines, I'm saying, that you need to learn how to use as well.
Yes. So you need to learn how to use the equipment and the tools that are in the decontamination area as well. It has a lot of preventative maintenance to it, maybe some qualification testings to it. So there's also that component too.
Okay. So no, I said that, and I did that on purpose for the family, just to see that sometimes we do have to break it down to people in those terms, because when people come down, and I know that you'll get that phone call, like, the tray, you just received the tray off of the dirty elevator, and you get a phone call immediately, like, is it ready yet? They don't understand. And this is those outside people looking in. They know what you do, but they don't know the process. So this is where we have to educate people on our process, what that workflow actually looks like, why the pre-cleanse is actually a point of use cleaning is actually needed, because it will help our process. But if they don't know the process, then that's where you're going to get multiple phone calls about something that is impossible. So how do you handle that when you get those phone calls and you just received the tray, and then you get a phone call like 3 minutes later, like, is it ready? Is it ready yet?
Yeah.
How do you handle that?
So typically I'll like root cause those situations, like, well, when did we receive it? And then we'll have those conversations. So, why did we receive it at that time? Did we have, adequate inventory? How frequent does this happen? First of all, I think in those moments, it's let's take care of the situation at hand. And then it's root causing that. So, so I think that's first of all, let's take care of the patient. Let's get them what they need. But then then let's talk about that.
Staff, leaders, managers, directors, did you hear the key part of that sentence? Let's handle the situation first and then go back and do the root cause. So many times we'll get caught up in the OR's fussing, the OR's doing this, and we're not worried about the patient on the table. We need to get the tray back up, get them a new tray or whatever the case may be, just to get them, back to patient care. Then let's talk about what happened. There's a lot of times where I've seen that get people hung up in the process of, hey, the OR's calling and yelling and pointing fingers, and what about the tray? Let's just get the tray done. And again, Andrea says, agreed, 100%. They don't know the process, because why would you call me 3 minutes later, 5 minutes later? Again, why are 10 people calling me for the same tray? All of those type of things, because this on us to educate them of what that process looks like. So I got it out of decon. It goes into a washer. It comes out the washer. Then what's next after that?
Then you're going to take it over to, your instrument inspection. That's where you're going to start inspecting it, making sure you have everything you need for it. You're going to look for instrument functionality, make sure it's clean, of course, sharpness testing, make sure you have your indicators in there. So again, this is what I was talking about, all those missed opportunities. So there's all of these other things you're going to be checking in your trade, and all these other things that could go wrong in that. Some people use tray liners. Some people opt not to use tray liners. When did you have a tray liner? Corner protectors, if you're using a wrapped item.
So I'm gonna ask you about that because you brought it up. Just because people, again, are gonna look at it and say, well, this person did that and that person did that. When I worked here, they did this, or when I worked here, they did that. How important is it for people to understand why they're doing what they're doing?
Extremely important. So, I mean, I'm going to use tray liners as an example. I think, sometimes I've seen, people are like, oh, okay, I don't have a lid, I'm going to use a tray liner. And I'm always like, okay, well, is a tray liner a lid, right? So I think it's important to understand what you're using and why you're using it for. Right. Like, what is the IFU of the product, right? Is that like, why don't we just get a lid for the tray?
Right.
So that's with anything. So I think it is important, like, why are we doing something? What's the rationale behind it? And like, what product are we using and what are we using it for? So just always go back to the IFU of things and rationale and explaining the why.
So you do that, like, so in that instance, that using something off label, do people actually think to say, oh, it's a tray liner, can I use it in this function, or can I use it in this fashion? Like, is that one of those things that it's just one of the, you just have to know, like, you have to check these things? And are we drilling that into people? You need to check the IFU because can you use it that way? Is it designed to be used that way? And things like that. So those little tidbits of the misconception of we don't need to know anything but know how to do instruments, but we use a lot of things in sterile processing that have IFUs that go with them. So
yeah, but I mean, what I would say is that there is so much that we need to know as a sterile processing tech. And so as leaders specifically, that's what we should be drilling into our team is to, you know, what does the IFU say? Reaching out to manufacturers. Is this okay to use this way? You know, do they have can they provide documentation? Those types of things. If we are told we can do it that way, or the vendor tells us we can do it that way, okay, do you have documentation you can provide us to that? So that's what I do as a leader. That's what I do with my experience. But does everyone do that? You know, I'm not sure.
And it's important. And that's one of the biggest things is that the documentation, making sure that we are documenting, making sure that we're tracking, as you mentioned, if you got tracking systems, making sure you're tracking and tracing where these trays are going, so that if something did happen, the traceability is there, and you take that onus off a sterile process and like, hey, we skipped a step. No, you didn't skip a step. It's right there where you needed to be. And we did all of the things we're supposed to do. I saw Star here. How you doing, Star? Well, thank you for coming. Angela, I saw you pop in. Thank y'all again for being here. Season 7, CEUs. We're here. We're all about it. I'm here with Donielle, and she's just going over what that basic SPD function is so we can get into what people think versus what reality is. So also, I don't know about your facility there, but I'm gonna get back to the instruments. But do y'all actually handle equipment as well?
We do not really do.
Okay.
We don't handle equipment.
Okay, good. But I know that there are some still facilities that do that as an extra function of their sterile processing, as well as do you have people that go out and do the rounds and actually get the stuff from the floors, or do they bring it out to you?
We have a little bit like clinics where we have to go pick up our clinics and bring those back in, instrumentation, but that's about it.
Real quick, Angela said it becomes this is what we've always done, so this is what we do with no reason behind it. LOL. And that is very true. If you're trained a certain way, when you walk into some place and they show you, it's normally not a explanation as to why they do it that way. It's kind of robotic. Like, the person showed them, they show you, you're going to show the next person because that's the way that facility does it. But when you go to ask questions, like the inquisitive minds some of us have, and they'll be like, I don't know why we do it that way. like, I don't know why we actually do it that way. I was trained that way. So it does. Somebody says continuous learning helps break those cycles of just doing things the way we've always done it. And that's a very true statement. How do you have to be able to keep going. You have to be able to keep learning. Yet, hence CEUs and keeping fresh ideas when stuff changes, being able to bring it to your teams and let you know that things are here in that moment. So again, now let's talk about some of the other things that you do in sterile processing. Do you happen to do high-level disinfection?
Yes. Yeah. Well, specifically at my site, we really don't do a lot of we don't do high-level disinfection, but across our system we do.
Is your department one of those that actually does scopes?
No, our department doesn't.
Oh, you got the good department over there. So you gotta have people in here jealous. Like, she doesn't do any of that stuff over there. Hi, Sharon. I saw you pop in, Miss Golden. How are you? Definitely. That is one of those that I see that people, those extra skills, right? It's definitely not just about the instruments. It's about having the totality of everything. Like when the new ST91 came out, people were like, oh, I do scopes. Now I got to get certified, where that wasn't something that was harped on before. So now having all of these things in your tool bag, you have to now grow with the business. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that right after this promotion.
In a world overflowing with noise, are you truly being heard? Or better yet, are you truly listening? Kenneth Campbell, industry author and expert in sterilization, is back with his latest book, Learn to Listen, so others are willing to talk. This book isn't just about hearing words, it's about understanding, connecting, and building trust. Whether you're leading a team, navigating relationships, or simply striving for better conversations, these practical strategies will transform the way you communicate. Imagine a world where every conversation leads to deeper connections, resolved conflicts, and greater influence. It's possible when you learn to listen. Are you ready to elevate your communication and create meaningful relationships? Learn to listen, so others are willing to talk. Available now.
That looked awesome. I think I'm gonna have to purchase that. Real talk. Definitely, again, learn to listen so others are willing to talk. It's out now. Definitely pick up a copy if you want to improve those communication skills, if you want to actually help yourself, help others, because again, we do know that a lot of people listen to respond and not listen to understand. So learn to listen so others are willing to talk. Now, yeah, right before that break, we talked about some of the other things that happen in sterile processing. And this is where I guess that the misconception comes in of what we actually do. Carol says, yes, the tribal knowledge could be dangerous, especially when it's wrong. Again, because it's passed from person to person and nobody's checking it. Because I know that there are not a lot of educators, right? We know that some facilities do have educators, but a lot of facilities share educators with the OR who's supposed to be, educating the people downstairs. But do we really get a lot of education from them? So that's what I'm saying. I want to make sure that people understand that as well. What I was saying is, so there's people doing scopes, there's people doing equipment, we're doing runs, we're doing everything but just instruments. How do we navigate that for people who don't understand that we do a lot of other things?
I think that's a great question. I think it's just continuing to prioritize whatever the needs are and providing them with, depending on the situation, whatever comes up, and providing them with, the evidence and best practice. So depending on, really the situation that comes up. So, I mean.
And I know people don't believe us when we say the customer service aspect. How many times has your phone ring in the department? How many times does the doorbell go off and you're having to help other people, not just do instruments? So there's other components that fall into the realm of sterile processing. And I think that's where people get the misconception that, well, all you do is stand there and do instruments.
Yeah.
What is and then in your normal day, I can say your normal day, how many times are your texts interrupted? Don't do scopes and stuff. I got to keep saying that. Like,
no, they're interrupted. They get interrupted quite a bit. So, they do get interrupted quite frequently with, a lot of different tasks, asked to do a lot of different things. So, we do a lot of different orthopedics. So we're very vendor heavy.
Okay.
Looking for vendor trays or like lids for trays, or just streamlining that in itself can be, challenging at times, but, with good processes established.
So even back to that goes back to the having a tracking system and actually being able to use it correctly. We know that there's a lot of things out there, vendor made, and all these things that you're supposed to have vendors checking in trays in timely fashion and get them to you and then label them correctly and stuff. But how many times do that gets messed up? How many times do we find ourselves looking for trays that we should have had for this case 3 or 4 days ago, but it's last minute, got mislabeled or misplaced and things like that. So not only are you not doing your instruments on the table, now you're over here searching for the stuff that takes you away from the table. And that's the part where people don't really see the behind the scenes of what actually happens in your workflow. It's not just doing instruments.
Yeah, I mean, that's an easy like misconception for me when I talk about like just vendor trays or something that I see. It's like, I dropped it off in decontam complete. Why is it not complete when it comes out of decontam? And I'm like, well,
That part.
not assembly. So, so that's,
And
one of many.
on that note, just to piggyback off of that, how many times has a tray gone up complete to the OR and come back missing stuff? Those missing instruments. There's something about those missing instruments. I don't know, but they seem to think that we're throwing them away on purpose. I don't know. So even down to that kind of conversation. Your only job is to do instruments. Why is this tray missing stuff?
I always say it's like the missing sock in the dryer. Like if anyone knows where that's at, like we have solved the world's greatest mystery.
I know that's right.
But there is a lot of good things that we can hone in on and look at, and patterns and collaborate on and make headway on and improve that with missing instruments. We've done a lot of good work on that, but
okay. I mean, but it still happens, right? The OR seems to think that somebody,
no matter where you go,
in their pocket. They're putting instruments in their pocket. They're throwing them down the drain. I heard somebody actually tell somebody, y'all let one go down the drain, and I'm trying to figure out how that happened. But again, I just wanted to talk about that real quick.
I think we all.
One of the things that I hear a lot, and I just want to have you explain it to the listeners, that sterile processing is the heartbeat of the hospital. Mm-hmm. I hear that a lot. What does that mean to you, and why?
What that means to me, I think that sometimes I think that, I've worked several different places, but I think that really you can, a lot of times we hear about when things go wrong, right?
Right.
But then it's like, if we don't do our job, or if something goes really wrong, like you can really just shut the OR down. So we keep everything flowing. We really do. We keep the operating room flowing. We keep the patients. We're a huge part of that. The patients. I know there's lots of other departments that also are, but we're really behind the scenes and play such a big role. So we really are that really a heartbeat to that. So
I think that's the piece that the biggest misconception in it is that one thing. We're only servicing the OR. Nobody talks about L&D. Nobody talks about the ENT clinics. Nobody talks about any of that kind of stuff.
That's true.
But we do have, instruments that go out to those clinics, and we are servicing those patients too that may not come through the hospital, but you've still touched one of those patients' lives. So I think that's the biggest piece that I think people actually ought to see, is that when we say heartbeat, we're really meaning like we'll keep a lot of clinics going. Now, to say that, I know a lot of people agree, because over the seasons we've talked about this entry level position, as they call it, the intro to the hospital, the entry levelness. How hard is it to keep, or should I say, for somebody coming in off the street? Can anybody just do this job?
I don't think that just anybody can do the job. I mean, what I've experienced with, I do think these skill sets can be taught.
Okay.
From what I've experienced, we've done a lot of different hirings, but you got to have the right, obviously you got to have the right people. So I do think you can teach these skill sets to the right people. Again, that's just been my experience with, certain students, certain people, and finding those right people. I hired a lot of new grads over the last probably 3 years, and I've found that. So
even with them coming out of schools like that, when people go to these schools and they're, getting this education, and they may come to you for an externship, and that's your audition to see if they're going to be a fit there. Because I know that, and I hate to say it this way, I know a lot of these schools are not up to par. I'll just say it that way.
Yeah.
Just being honest. I've seen a lot of them where the students can go through the whole course and then get to your facility and they don't know anything. And I'm trying to figure out how do we let that keep happening?
I agree with you. But I also have seen a lot of good people not even coming out of the schools from just different fields and different walks of life and then able to just like teach them the skill sets if you have the right people in your department that can, like I have someone that came from hospitality, great customer service. She's one of my best liaisons.
Okay.
So like but I have lots of examples.
Right.
So I think if you can hire right and find the right people, like you can kind of.
Now, on that note, I know that there's a big push across the country about certification being mandatory in every state. What do you feel about the certification? Because why I ask that is I know people right now in the industry who may have been doing this 30 plus years and are not certified because their state doesn't require it. But they're very good techs. But I know a lot of emphasis gets pushed on the certifications. How do you feel?
I felt pretty strongly about certification as far as getting it, just because like even, when I started, we were, CVS PD, and then I went to, HSPA, and, it's just, having that, just maintaining my education every year and staying up to date, and, not that I wouldn't, and I've always been involved, and that's how I've, learned and done that. I think it's important, because if you're not certified, then how are you maintaining your education? So I think in our field, lucky for us, who's been in the field for a long time, like that happened, but we've evolved so much, and I've seen that evolvement over the 21 years I've been in this industry. Like it's time that we're all certified, and it really should be that way, I think.
So I saw two comments here. Carol said that I agree. Not everyone can do this job. Either you get it or you don't. There's no more fake it till you make it option here. And then I saw Angela had said the difference in programs. Some people have 3-month programs. Some people have 12-month programs. So how are we teaching all of the same type thing in 3 months versus 12 months? So the disparity between even just the schools leaves a lot to be desired there. Again, Star says, I've heard of some schools where the teachers aren't even certified. They're just teaching. I saw Miss Green go to have one up there as well. She said SPD covers all areas of the hospital. Every department that handles reusable instruments should have them processed in SPD. Therefore, we are the heart. And that's exactly what we were saying, Ms. Golden, that at the end of the day, when people don't know those pieces, they know that we do stuff for the OR, but they don't know about the clinics. They don't know about L&D. They don't know about ENT. They don't know that all of these stuff gets brought to SPD. Now, there are some places that use a lot of disposables, and that's fine because that wouldn't come to us anyway. But at the end of the day, like as you said, if it's reusable, it should be processed in SPD. Now, I'm not even going to get into the clinics and people that have the tabletop sterilizers. We're not even going to talk about it because that's another show for another day. That is something that I just dealt with. I just saw, actually, and it was like no regulatory, nothing. They're just, and I'm going to tell you a quick story because I thought it was the funniest thing to me. I was at a hospital, went to the ENT clinic. They had a tabletop sterilizer. I was just taking over somewhere, and this happened to me in real life. We went in. There was no biologicals, no indicators, no nothing. And they had all this sterilized stuff that had just came out of the tabletop. And it's sitting there. And I asked the young lady, I said, well, how do you know that stuff is sterile? And now these are ENT techs, not SPD, none of that. I said, well, how do you know that stuff is sterile? And she just looked at me with a straight face and said, because the packages are wrinkled. That was the deciding factor of it being sterilized. The package was wrinkled. There's nothing that, so we ended up taking that sterilizer out of there to say the least. But I was just like, this is where we're at. And this is why these things need to be regulated because as Sarah Green Golden said, send that stuff to SPD. Don't be trying to do it yourself because you'll get that type of stuff. And again, that's the misconception. Anybody can do it. It's just instruments. It's just washing dishes, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, okay, I got it. I see what we're doing. Sharon Green said, I know law texts that are awesome for my murder case. I want a legal certified passed by the bar lawyer. We should be certified, which is the minimum basic knowledge for working in SPD.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Quantisha says onboarding and proper employee development in addition to certification. Yes, those are things that later shows I'm going to be talking about some of that. But again, if you're not onboarded correctly or you don't have, proper, as I said, if you're not certified and stuff, are you really getting anything from the in-services? Are you paying attention at all? First and foremost, does that even mean anything to you when you're doing the in-services? Because you don't know what they're talking about anyway. You're trying to figure it out as we go and things like that. So we just want to make sure that people really are understanding that it's not just entry level. It is way more that happens behind the racks, behind the red line, than us just going to decon and washing dishes, as we say. But we're going to get a little bit more into detail about that right after this commercial. Again, thank you all for being here. I'm so excited that we're offering CEUs. You saw it, IMP. Thank you. They're our big sponsor that got us here to season 7, wanting to make sure that this education and this information gets to you all. So again, if you haven't been to their website, visit them on LinkedIn, visit their website, and definitely check out the products that they're offering to the industry as well. And remember, at the end of the show, the QR code will go up. You scan the QR code, and it'll take you to the page where you can actually do the quiz and get your CEU. Donielle, so let's talk about, I heard you say best practices. Again, I know this is for most of us know this, but when we're talking best practices, what entity is going to give us that information?
So we should defer to Amy for our resources.
Now, I know that policy, SOPs, and stuff should be based off of what the recommendations are. Now, when you're developing your stuff in your department, how much of it is based on what you know to be fact versus what you do every day?
Everything is based off of what we know to be fact. So not just what we do every day. I mean, and we annually go back through our policies.
Okay.
Things change.
And that's the key part, is going back to and making sure that those policies and stuff do align with what Amy says, and we're following that trajectory. Carol had a comment there. I want to just make sure I get that up there. As an educator, I truly believe that the poor onboarding, which often includes poor training and putting tech into staffing before they are ready, is one of the reasons for the high turnover rates that we see. How do you feel about that one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, from what I've seen too, every technician, it could be a little bit different,
Right.
So, I think that's another misconception. Just because someone has experience, that people might want to rush them through a little bit quicker. And
we see that a lot. We see that one a lot, though.
I always say, they are new here. It doesn't matter how much experience they have, and we need to see. We need to see it for ourselves, right? So we're going to treat them the same. We're going to take them through the same onboarding, and that's how we take them through the same exact checklist. We're not going to, we don't rush this, so it's the exact same. So, yeah, I completely agree with that.
I got that one. I was somewhere and I had a traveler, and I'm gonna put it on the travelers. If you're a traveler here, it's not you I'm talking about. I'm talking in general. I had a traveler come in, had a glowing resume, glowing references, all that kind of stuff. Even the skills checklist was A-perb, and I put them in decon, and she didn't know anything.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
because I think that we actually sat there and we say, because they're coming in as a traveler with this experience and stuff, we don't normally give them the full gambit of what we would do somebody else, because they're supposed to be here with that experience. So we assume, because they are traveling and knowing stuff, that they should know. But that showed me that, yeah, we can't do that. But back to your point, everybody gets that same onboarding. Everybody gets that same, level of, you are new here. This is how we do it, just to make sure that you're on board with what we're doing.
Yeah.
Skill set wise, again, we have to assess that per person. Like you said, it could be different ways that people learn. It could be all kind of things. Carl says, yes, we set them up to fail when we assume they know things.
I think that, oh, sorry.
No, I'm saying that's true. We set people up to fail because we assume that you're supposed to know that.
I think the other thing that I've seen is sometimes even an onboarding, the trainer you put with your trainee just might not match. And you might have, your trainee might be okay and your trainer might be okay. They just might not mix together. And so sometimes you have to make sure you're checking in, and you have to make sure you're paying attention to that. And then just switch that up during onboarding.
That goes back to the skill set. Can everybody be a preceptor?
No.
So, I mean, and that's part of that, what people don't see. We follow the hierarchy just like everybody else. There's tech 1s, tech 2s, tech 3s. There's preceptors, there's leads, there's supervisors. So behind the scenes, there are people that have risen through the ranks and hold titles and positions. But if that person's burned out, if that person's off, if that person's out on leave, and we have to stick somebody in that position, yes, the training is going to be different.
Yeah.
But for the skill set, are there a certain set of skills that you have to have to work in sterile processing?
To work in sterile processing?
Yes.
Yeah, I think sterile processing in healthcare, I mean, you have to be flexible. You have to be able to adapt to change. You need to have, good communication skills. You need to work well with others. You need to be able to interpret the things that you're reading and doing, because there's not always going to be someone who can help you with everything, and we don't always know everything. So we have to be able to, look the IFUs and know what we're doing, and critical thinking. So,
she said it, y'all. She said the key word, that critical thinking get people in trouble. She said it. Now, with that said, with that piece being said, how important is documenting in sterile processing?
Well, it's 100%. 100%. I mean,
so is that one of those critical skills that they need? You have to be able to document correctly. I know a long time ago somebody said in nursing, if it wasn't documented, it didn't happen.
Yes, same.
But for us, is that kind of the same premise? If you don't show, if I can't prove that you did this steps, and that's why we talked about it in the beginning, everything has to be traceable. So with a tracking system, or people that don't have tracking systems, again, everybody's human. So if I'm scanning 20 items on a cart and I miss one, it happens, or should it not happen?
There's always human error. But I think in some of those areas, that's where you put in some of your audits or your double checks, some of those high risk areas that we're talking about. But it can't happen, when it comes to like sterilization, it can't happen. Those are legal records. So you have to make sure that those things, you can't have trays that are not scanned into sterilization loads. They have to be there. You have to put in fail safe so those things don't happen.
I got a bunch of comments popped up. I want to make sure I get to all of them. This first one, Ms. Golden said, the CDC, ANC, AMI, AORN, evidence-based practice are all guidelines to best practice in our profession. Giving you the guidelines, all of these people are putting stuff out there. No, especially not like the ones that like to cut corners. Again, not everybody can be a preceptor, because you do have those people going to show you their way versus the way it's supposed to be done. Angela said everybody has to have that integrity. And Dr. Mosley says critical thinking skills. Again, all of these things are those skills. Travelers should be treated as new hires and put them with one preceptor and do competency on them to assess them. same way that you would do your person that's coming on permanently. We should be doing the travelers the same way, because again, we don't know what they learned, where they were learned it at, and how you do it at your facility may be different. So we want to make sure we're setting people up for success and not setting them up for failure at the beginning. So just in that, so those misconceptions there, like that you just talked about, those common misconceptions, all we do is instruments. We don't have any direct, relation to patient care. Given what we talked about today, for somebody wanting to get in sterile processing, what kind of advice could you give them?
I tell people that it's I tell people that our field is a hidden gem. But it is a lot to learn, just kind of like what we talked about. It is not, it's not easy,
right.
But it is something to start researching. And that most of it is going to be learned on the job. So even if you go out there and go to a school, I think you're going to get some basic knowledge base, but you have to get in a hospital. You have to get that hands-on experience, and then I think researching the hospital you want to get into, because every facility is different. So I think making sure you're researching the right facility and what type of facility you want to get into, I think that's also important.
Again, everybody's saying the same thing. Ms. Golden say you must have those critical thinking skills, because a lot of times you're right. The manager that might not be there, the lead may be doing something else, the supervisor could be pulled away, and you have to make a decision in that moment, and you have to be able to critically think your way through it to get to the end result, because at the end result for all of us is still the patient, right? Mm-hmm. And Dr. Mosley said it here, we are the heart of quality patient care outcomes. Right. And that's why I think that misconception is the biggest one to me, is that people don't feel like SPD has any part of the patient care. Like, they don't understand that it's the instruments that we process, it's the equipment that we put out, it's all of these things combined. If that cleaning is, like you said earlier, if that cleaning isn't done correctly, and again, that's a different show, different time, but if it isn't clean, can it be sterile? So knowing those process steps, just knowing those process steps and knowing how to follow those steps. You talked about IFUs, you talked about tracking, you talked about the communication, you talked about documentation. So these are all things that people on the outside. So with me saying that, if there's somebody in here that's new to sterile processing, they're new to sterile processing, they probably been in the department a week, what advice would you give them?
I would tell them that, I usually tell new people it takes a good year to really catch on. Maybe after 6 months, they're going to really get it, but that a great career could come out of it too. So to keep learning, and that they're never going to stop learning, but to also find their voice and be empowered to speak up just because they're new. I always tell the new technicians to find their voice in this, speak up. Don't be afraid to speak up. That's what I always tell the new technicians.
And that's great advice, because I think that's what happens. You'll get somebody new that comes in. They might get paired with one of those people you say that can't preset, or they meet the negative Nancy from the beginning, and it could discourage them. But your voice is your voice. And so speaking up for yourself, learning what you need to learn, and grasping what you need to grasp, to make sure that if you're going to do this as your career, you're making the most of your opportunities. And like some of the stuff like they're saying here, like Carl said, schooling is fine. However, you need to be able to actually apply that knowledge by following SOPs, stopping the line when necessary. So finding your voice, stopping the line when you see something that isn't correct, or, that you need to call out. Don't be afraid to be that person. And there was another one that up from Quantisha, I think I saw, learn to advocate for yourself and make the decision to do things as if your family member is on that table. We hear that one a lot when we are talking to our staff and we're talking to, other people, and they said, would you want this used on your family member, or would you want it used on you? I think that one of the things that I tell people I hate to hear people say when I'm in facilities is that if I have to have surgery, don't bring me here. Right. And I'm like, you work here. Like if you don't want to have surgery here, you work here. What does that say for us in the community? So just having that kind of, understanding and talking to your staff. It took me a year to learn the nomenclature in this, the initials. I thought Amy worked at the facility. Hey, That's a very good one, because somebody did tell me that one time, and I was like, oh, when I first came in and somebody had said something about Amy, and the manager looked at him and said, Amy doesn't work here. And I was like, oh, okay, so Amy's a person. And then later I learned like Sharon, I learned that no, you got to follow what you have to follow. So Donielle, just in general, let's talk about like what we talked about today. Workflow. Our workflow starts at the pre-cleaning, point of use cleaning. It comes to decon. You said that there's a process in the sinks. We're doing all the things, having to know IFUs, and in knowing the IFU would know if it goes into Sonic, not goes into Sonic. If it doesn't, go straight to the wash, goes into Sonic, goes back in the sink, rinse, go to the wash. So we got the decon part down. It comes out on the clean side. People are inspecting, visually inspecting, assembling, documenting, making sure that all the pieces and parts are there, right? Then we move to the sterilization piece. And again, knowing the IFU, knowing what that entails, and knowing how to get that tray to, sterility. So we got all of those pieces down. So the workflow of that piece is correct. What about when something in that flow is interrupted? What happens?
It's depending on where it's at in the process. So I mean, any disruption in that, could be if it's up in the OR and it's disrupted, or it gets through that process, it's disrupted. I mean, it's a breakdown. I mean, then
Dr. Moses says that one-way flow. You got a one-way workflow. You're just going back and forth. You do it one way. And I'm going to throw a monkey wrench in here, and I'm going to ask you a question only because I'd like to hear the answer, because it happened to me once, and it was a whole big debate. And this has nothing to do with this. This is a bonus question for everybody listening. We talk about disruption in the workflow, right? So say your sterilizer aborted, right? You pull that load out. What do you do with it?
I break it down, send it back to decontam. You have to reprocess everything.
That was the answer I was looking for. But, I've heard people say they don't have to send it all the way back to decon. But I just want to make sure, I want to throw that out there. It's a bonus question just so everybody understands. That was just to test the knowledge of, my people on here, my guests be letting us know. Angela says clinics dropping off and picking up, loading and unloading washers, cart washers, responding to OR requests, techs missing instruments from their sets. L&D just called from another floor and needs a set stat. New docs need 10 pill packs. OR 8 is missing their case carts. So much can happen. So much can happen in the flow of a normal day. And that is exactly how you sum it up. What does your workflow look like when all of that is happening? When all of that is happening, saw that she said that, yes, you were right. It's a break in the process. The steps had to be repeated, and it goes back. Steam is down, autoclaves aborted. It's time to go back, and it's a break in the process. I like it. I mean, I was just asking because I just want to see where she was at, because I've heard people say different answers there. So I wanted to make sure that we did get that to just let people know, like, when we're talking about these things, these are real world things that we know are happening. Mm-hmm. And that's what the difference in this season is. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff that is truly happening in departments and not what the books say we should be saying. Because I want everybody to understand that we understand that real world does happen. Things in your department are going to be chaotic at times. But what do we do in those situations? When you have these new people who are relying on you for their education and you don't have a preceptor, or you have 3 people with 1 preceptor, is that acceptable, or should we be staggering? What should we be doing to make sure that these people have the best chance at success? These are the things that are happening behind the rack every day in everybody's departments across the country. And it's not just with new techs. We're talking about with seasoned veterans too, because again, that is the same thing. If they're working from a point of tribal knowledge, as we call it, and not, as Donielle said, certifications is important, but if they're not, and they're just saying, hey, I was grandfathered in, Do we know what they're showing your people that you're bringing in? Do we know what's being passed on culturally to the people that are coming in? So that's where we want to try to get ahead of all of that and make sure that we're doing everything the right way. Pontisha said, with these responses, we seem to be the A team of SPD. Yes, I'm trying to make sure we got the A team in here. You stop the line and fix what is not working. That is ideal, Miss Golden. You got to recall that load and fix what is not working, send it back to decon, start over. And again, when we're talking about the frontline workers, we're talking about established staff. Are we doing the right thing for all of them at the right time? That's what we have to make sure that we're doing that. If you don't document it or have the chain of custody, you are not covered. And that is a very true statement, because they're going to be looking to you to prove that what you say happened. And that is where that documentation comes in. That's one of the biggest, again, that big part of the misconception is what's happening in the OR has nothing to do with SPD downstairs. They're not a part of the patient. I'm up here with the patient. You just brought me a set, and so on and so forth, not understanding we're in this together. Dr. Mosley said it's important to establish a strong educational platform, because that's where it begins. Education is ongoing in SPD. Again, I saw somebody say earlier, a tag vendor set for today, buried than 2 more sets. All of that, yes. Make sure you're advocating. No major sets on the shelf for the add-ons. These are all real world things that happen every day, and we want to make sure that we are addressing these things. As I saw somebody say, stop the line. If you know it's wrong, stop the line. That's the bottom line to it. Stop the line, and let's be the voice for the people that are on the table. Let's be the voice for the rest of us in there that want to do the right thing. You stop the line and fix what is not working. If it is something that you see, it's not snitching, it's not tattletelling, it's actually a patient that's going to be the end result of whatever's happening. So making sure that we stop the line, making sure that we correct and fix and address, educate if need be, to make sure that those people are and will get the proper training. Donielle, it's been a pleasure. But as I always do on Time to Talk, for just the audience here, just for everybody. Okay, let me get this comment first. My favorite is when we are described as a non-revenue generating department. Oh my goodness, that is that comment right there. That is that comment. They be waiting on that one. I don't make no money for us anyway. It's patient safety and action, the stuff that we do down here in sterile processing. But again, these are the types of things that you're going to hear on your journey, whether you're leadership, whether you're frontline. These are the types of things you're going to hear. And I want to make sure that we are empowering each other to hold each other accountable for these actions and these things. Have those travelers, treat them like new employees, let them go through the onboarding the right way. Don't assume that because they can check a box on a skills checklist to say they were a 5 and perfect in everything, that they know what they're doing when they get there. Somebody comes to you with experience from another place, same thing. Just making sure that we're quality checking what they're doing, making sure that the onboarding process is the same. Donielle, for the listeners out here in our great land listening to us right now, if you had, I ain't gonna say a crystal ball, I'm gonna say, what advice can you give them about this profession that you just need to, that you just want to say right now? What can you offer them as advice for their journey in sterile processing?
Just, I mean, everybody in sterile processing, not new people, just anyone.
Just everybody.
I think.
I know it's on the spot. My fault.
This is, but everybody in sterile processing. I mean, my own advice, I guess, is that we never stop learning, and we just keep learning from each other. And that's the only way we're going to just keep evolving and getting better. That's how we got here. That's how we got here today, right? Like that's how we went from where we were to where we are today. So that's it. That's the only way.
And wise words indeed. Never stop learning. Always striving to keep yourself going forward. And again, no matter how long we've been in this business, and I know we've talked about it on several of these shows, we are all learning something weekly, daily, yearly, monthly. We're all still growing and learning in this business, no matter how long we've been doing this. And it shows in the work. It shows in the text we're putting out. It shows when you can say that one of your people is now a leader, or you mentored somebody and they became stronger based on your leadership and the things that you showed them. Always continuously learning to get to that next step. Family, it's been a time to talk. Make sure you have your phones ready, because the QR code is going to be coming up. I want to make sure you get your CEU. Make sure you scan the code. Make sure you go there, take your test, get your CEU. Definitely reach out to me if you need anything. I'm here for you. Donielle, how can they find you if they had any more questions for you?
Yeah, I can, my email, or I don't know if you can
Whatever
share
you want to give them, whatever you want to give them.
Yeah, I can share my email. However I can share it. I'm willing to share. I don't know if I can put that in the chat, or or just say it.
You can just say it. If they can get it, they can find. Are you on LinkedIn?
I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah, just
so we can find her on LinkedIn, her
Okay.
email. We can make sure that everybody has the contact information for her, just to make sure that y'all, if y'all have any further questions or you want to actually pick her brain about some of the things that she's been through, you can definitely reach out to her and make sure that you connect, because that's what this is about. It's about educating. It's about networking. It's about us being our own advocates and making sure that what we want, we're passing on, and what we are trying to achieve in this business, we're trying to achieve together. So get your phones together. I think we're going to run another commercial, and then the QR code will pop up. Make sure you get the QR code. Make sure you go do the CEUs. Donielle, I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Hey, family, it's been a time to talk. Season 7 is here. CEUs as entertaining. I love the conversation, because, again, people don't know what they don't know, right? People don't know what they don't know, and it's up to us to show them what we truly do and who we truly are behind that red line. That's all they know is, hey, they stop at the line. They don't know what happens back there, but we're here to tell them that, hey, we make a difference. We're part of the patient care cycle, and we do more than just wash dishes. Like, just keep making that clear for everybody. Family, love you all. Thank y'all for being here. Again, thank Miss Donielle for coming in and showing us love today. Hey, until next week, same time, same place. It's been a time to talk. Let's talk about it.
In a world overflowing with noise, are you truly being heard? Or better yet, are you truly listening? Kenneth Campbell, industry author and expert in sterilization, is back with his latest book, Learn to Listen, so others are willing to talk. This book isn't just about hearing words. It's about understanding, connecting, and building trust. Whether you're leading a team, navigating relationships, or simply striving for better conversations, these practical strategies will transform the way you communicate. Imagine a world where every conversation leads to deeper connections, resolved conflicts, and greater influence. It's possible when you learn to listen. Are you ready to elevate your communication and create meaningful relationships? Learn to listen, so others are willing to talk. Available now.
I guess now we give you the QR code. There we go. Make sure we scan the QR code and it'll take you to the test.